the Apple App Store and downloaded a success measurement app. I have a successometer on my iPhone now, and yep, very successful. It's easy, it's just not a problem, so don't worry about it. But I think Michelle, who's actually run an organization for years, took it from zero to a very successful, important organization in a small northern American country called
Alaska.
No, it's near Canada. Canada. And he, I think, has a lot to say about this because he's had lots of experience building an organization and making it really a startlingly good success.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I mean, I will just, of course, as the gentleman from Pakistan mentioned, you know, there are many differences from many countries. I would just relate to elements that are as part of my employment contract. Okay, so I report to a board of director, and they will give me a bonus at the end of the year, and my bonus is in function of a certain number of criterias, and I will share those criterias with you. Maybe they are relevant to you, maybe they're not. One is the value of our media coverage. So we have different techniques to monitor both the quantity and the quality of our media coverage, to basically say, if we had to buy that kind of media coverage instead of getting it, how much would we have had to pay for it? The second is the progression in terms of the revenues, because the notion is, but it's averaged out over 3 years, because the notion is, if over the long run your revenues are steadily increasing, it means that more and more people believe in what you're doing, so it must mean something up to some point. And the third main criteria of evaluation in my employment contract has to do with the management of the staff. So there's a survey of the level of satisfaction of employees and collaborators, and there's also a survey of the board members as to what they feel the overall output of the organization is and what they feel my own performance is. The notion here behind this is that some people can be wrong sometimes, but all the people cannot be wrong all the time. And with those three criteria, we average it out, and then it generates a certain amount of money. So these are criteria that might be used either internally, and we have variations of it. I don't want to dwell too much on this. We have variations of it that we report to some of our donors, especially some foundations. We use some variations of what I've just mentioned in order to show our progress. And the important thing is, whatever criteria you have, you must be constant about it. So if people say, well, this criteria or this criteria is not perfect, fine, of course it's not perfect. But if you're constant, then at least you can measure it over time in a manner that is relevant. Thank you.
So I basically have two questions. It's about volunteers.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Frederick Reuter. I'm chairman of the recently started European Students for Liberty. We're the little daughter or brother of the American Students for Liberty, and we're a service provider for students around the world who want to start or already run on-campus groups to promote pro-liberty, free market, a classical liberal, however you want to call it, ideas. And we provide students with resources, networking, and trainings. This wonderful book, Morality of Capitalism, was Students for Liberty was one of the co-producers next to the great Atlas Network and Tom Palmer. And we basically only work with volunteers. We have only in our DC office a very lean staff. So my question basically to the panel is how to encourage volunteers to work with think tanks who usually like there's always more to do than you can cover with your staff. And the problem of working with problem of quality management when you work with volunteers. Like, how can you basically train volunteers in a way that basically the quality which is performed or provided by the volunteers actually meets your professional standards you want actually to show to the public?
My answer is going to be limited. Sometimes we also. Yes. My answer will be limited. Sometimes we also have some difficulties. But university faculty members are very important to motivate students. Because usually young people in our societies are quite considerate about the problems in the country. And when they hear from their professors quite reasonable arguments, and they really feel encouraged and passionate to follow their professors. And usually professors are very influential over the students to bring them and contribute to the programs. So it is, I think, important to make use of professors or opinion leaders who are quite reasonable and consistent and systematic about making their arguments on the problems which are very important in the country.
I have to say, Central Asian Free Market Institute is one of the best groups I know of in the world for bringing lots of student volunteers. You call their offices, and there'll be 15 or 20 university-age students or young professionals working at 11 o'clock at night to get the work done. So, Michu, why don't you tell us how you do it?
I think they are motivated differently. For example, right now, mostly they want to become a part of CAFME because some of their course mates, like their other friends, are affiliated or they know about CAFME, for example, and they have an interest, and it might be some kind of a prestigious. At the same time, they need some experience, for example, in their CVs, in some organization which has economic affiliation with something, and there are different motivations, and we just invite them, and they can join us, and also they learn from us a lot about, for example, event management, doing things right, doing things better, and I think they might have different expectations. For example, I see one of the volunteers who volunteered around about a month, right? And then he left to Istanbul. Right now he lives here and studies, so maybe he could actually explain why he was working there.
Let me add one more thing, that groups that do this well, they focus on fun. Fun is a great way to motivate volunteers. KFB has retreats, and they're fun. They go, they do enjoyable things together. Samriddhi Foundation in Nepal takes all their volunteers, they go off to a beautiful mountain location. It's not expensive, they're young people, it's like a camping experience. And they have a really good, wholesome, nice, fun time. So everyone has a positive feeling about being a volunteer. And then their friends want to come and volunteer and do all that hard work until 2 o'clock in the morning to get the project done. So that's a good way to get inexpensive labor by providing not money, but fun.
Thank you. Thomas Gur from Sweden. This is a question maybe mostly to Sasha, Tom, and Özlem, but maybe other panelists also can fill in. And it's some subject you haven't touched upon, and I wonder what type of reactions do you get and how do you cope with when local organizations like ALT and so forth, the think tanks, work with foundations and organizations that are affiliated with Western countries. Erdogan, the Turkish Prime Minister, recently ranted about the German funds, and everybody knows what they are doing here in Turkey and so forth and so on. Actually, a couple of years ago, a book was published in Turkish about the Mannkal Society. I don't know if you've heard of it or seen it, but it was one of those books of those secret organizations that rule the world, the Bilderberg Group, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, the Martians, the Zionists, and and Mannkal Society. So there is always, you have always, I guess, to cope with how you work with international organizations, especially those like the organization that I'm an advisor to, who is also affiliated with a political party as it's in Sweden. So what type of reactions do you meet and how do you cope with them?
Okay. Yes. In the region where I work, we do not face many problems. In Central Asia, you look closer? Okay. In Central Asia, there are no problems in the countries where we work, or very few problems, I would say. And in the countries where we would face problems as a German organizations, or we have faced, we do not work anymore. One example.
So you cope with that?
One example is Uzbekistan. We tried to work there for 5-6 years, and it was not dangerous for us. The worst thing which can happen to us is that we get a ticket home. But what could happen to our Uzbek colleagues and friends is much more dangerous. Therefore, we stopped working there, simply. In Russia, you know, we get bad commands on blogs. Yeah, I personally also, when I travel the regions and so on, but it does not influence our work. And the most important thing is that always our partners are in the center, or should be in the center of interest. You know, we do not run own programs. We support programs and give all kinds of support, financial and mostly other support. But Norman Foundation, as a German foundation, in Russia or Central Asia, is not in the center of the interest. We support, and they're happy when we are there, mostly. But we do not, and we do not promote German positions. We are probably, there are other foundations think a little bit the other way on this, but we promote liberal positions, not German positions, and that's also very, very important for us. That's what I can say. And we do not, at the moment, there are no serious problems with